a fascinating Babbage chat.
Well, they'll have to buy the book.
They will have to buy another book. Good point. So let's see. Let's wait for the abuse, shall we? Who wants to start? Tim is looking rugged. Thank you. That's not really abuse, though, Gavin. That's just facts.
No, I think he means Tim is looking rugged. He thinks it's a wig.
Yeah, well, that's possible as well. If it is a wig, I'm taking it back. I might demand a refund.
It's very realistic. No one would think that was a wig.
Hey, David, come on now. No, I'm not doing hot hardware. That's Barry. It's not a keyboard, before people ask.
Did you see we had the hottest ever hardware last week?
I didn't. What was it?
If you scroll back up Discord, you can see the audience votes.
Okay. Scroll, scroll, scroll.
What was it?
It was the KBQ USB tester.
View poll.
Oh, yeah.
94%.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was-
What is it? What is it?
It's a little thing, like it looks like, I don't know, it's a fag packet sort of thing with an LCD display, and you plug in USB, I think on both sides of it, it sits in line and tells you voltage and data flow and stuff like that.
Oh,
So,
God, John and I have had conversations about this kind of kit
wow.
because we are fascinating people. And this is
Well, you
what
should
we
listen
chat
to last week's podcast.
Yeah. No, we really should have done. Because at the moment, it's, as I've moaned to John, it's quite difficult to verify whether or not companies are telling the truth about the speed of their USB ports.
Well, it's 90 quid, so we sort of concluded it wasn't necessarily something an individual would buy, but for someone with a shop or a lab or anything like that, it's such a time saver just to immediately be able to say this port or this cable is capable of this or that.
Yeah. So, Cole, I do feel a bit. Cole's kind of hauled me up on the fact I don't listen to the podcasts. So I'm not. It is true. I do find it. It's not that I find it difficult to listen to them, but it's a weird thing. It's like I don't read the magazine either, but that's because I've seen every page.
Yeah, you definitely read the magazine in a sense just before it goes out.
Yeah. But I've got the new one here, for example. Is this the new one? No, this is the last one.
Yeah, there should be a new one coming out 8 days' time, something like that.
And so they're good for reference, but yeah, hot hardware key.
I have to admit, I stopped my physical subscription because I can get because I'm on the inside. I can find things online on Google Drive if I need to refer back to them, or refer forward to them, read features I'm interested in. So save the planet.
Yes, good for reference. I know it's a ringing endorsement. It's well worth read if you haven't read this one. This is issue 369. So we've got our
What's the
Windows
cover
95,
feature? Oh.
Windows 95, the inside story,
Yes.
heavily contributed to by Mr. Barry Collins, but nonetheless pretty good. No comeback. Oh, blimey.
Is Barry's mic definitely working? I haven't heard
Yeah,
a peep out of him in the past.
I know. You do wonder, don't
I
you?
promise it's there. I'll just save it up until the episodes that Tim isn't on because he won't hear it anyway.
All right, 10 seconds to curtain.
Oh, curtains now.
Well, I normally say 10 seconds to curtain Miss Piggy, and I always think someone's going to think I might be being rude, so I cut it short. 1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is the 29th of May 2025. I am Tim Danton. I think I'm still editor-in-chief of PC Pro unless I've been usurped in the month I've been away. With me today I have John Honeyball,
Afternoon.
Darian Graham-Smith
Hello there.
and Barry Collins.
Good afternoon.
So they say I'm looking rugged on Discord. Always join us, by the way, pcpro.link/discord, and you can join in the banter, by which I mean basically abuse directed at each of us. Today I've been accused of being rugged, first time ever, but Barry is even more rugged, resplendent in his silver-specked stubble. So, Barry, with that out of the way, what's going on? What's the big story, man?
Well, surprise, surprise, it's AI again. And this is workers at Amazon who are getting a little bit fed up of being the AI's monkey, it seems. So Amazon has rolled out AI pretty aggressively across the company, as you might expect, and particularly for the sort of back end coders, I guess, people working on the back end of the site and all of the cloud services that Amazon are developing. And it's according to a piece written by the Economic Times, who've spoken to people inside the company. It seems that a number of the coders are getting a little bit brassed off with the rising demands that have been put on them since the advent of AI, with targets going up and time to work on projects being condensed, but also the fact that as AI writes more and more of the code, they feel their jobs are less satisfying because they're not doing so much the creative work. They're basically just checking the AI for mistakes. And I mean, I'm not a programmer, but I guess half of the challenge of it is you want to be able to solve the problems yourself, not just inspect the AI's homework, if you like. And so apparently there's growing disenchantment within Amazon about the roles that these people have.
Yeah, and hardly surprising, is it really, in many ways? So this will be echoing, if you won't excuse the word, in every company around the world, and we're seeing it also reflected, I think it's fair to say, in the job announcements. People basically trying to do more with less. So the question for, let's turn to John Honeyball. The question for our panel is this simply ever thus, or are the coders to be up in arms?
I think there's an element of both here. I mean, let's go back a long time. When you had to program computers in machine code, and then along came, compilers, and people said, "Oh, this is terrible." And then I'm old enough to remember writing Windows code using the Windows S2 SDK, and there was no hand holding at all. There was no development environment. There was barely even a debugger. You had to write your own WinMain loop in a text editor. And then along came things like Visual Pascal, Visual Basic, and all of these more rapid application development platforms. And roll forward to 25, oh goodness me, no, 35 years. And here we are today with modern development platforms. And the AI-ness part is just the next logical progression along the way.
So actually, Jordan, I'll take you a little bit further back in history, shall I?
Oh, please do.
Because I've been writing
punch tape.
Here we go.
Punch cards and tape. Yes.
Yeah, I am going to bang on endlessly about this. I do apologise for the rest of my life, but one of the very, very, very early computers, when you could barely call them programmable because, for example, for the ENIAC, you actually had to physically plug in cables to program it. So that's how this all kind of started, if you want to talk about this in terms of electronic computing. And then you got to the dizzy heights of actually having higher level languages in the 50s and the growth of those. So we have had this these things come along in chunks. So these things, there's a big event that happens. So like in the 1950s, the big event moved away from actually having to worry about machine code so much. So that this feels to me like another big leap in programming that everyone's just going to have to get used to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I said, the arrival of Turbo Pascal, Visual Basic, and so forth, these were GUI development platforms for the then emerging Windows and other GUI platforms that were around at the time. And these, Apple, of course, had its card-based system programming platform. And with NextStep, of course, we had the utterly wonderful OpenStep and the UI building capabilities of that. So, I mean, it suddenly enabled a whole bunch more stuff, and you would have been totally naive if you didn't think this was going to have a big effect. Of course, coding is going to radically change over the next 2, 3, 4 years. You could argue it's already significantly changing, and the people who truly add the value are the ones who are going to come out of this riding on top of the wave. people who are there basically cranking the handle and turning out code. And I really don't want to mean that in a disrespectful way, but there's a lot of code generation stuff that is done that's, it's sort of like the sort of IT equivalent of brick building. And that's why large organizations, large government departments and so forth, large corporations have ended up with so many platforms, so many copies of their data and so forth, because there's an awful lot of ingrained, not invented here, and we want to do a new thing, so we'll start again from scratch and not use the existing stuff. Maybe AI is going to really help in consolidating an awful lot of this stuff together. I just take one small example. I have bemoaned the fact that although I log into gov.uk for anything to do with my cars and taxing them and so forth, and for London congestion charge and so forth, and Bristol congestion charge and low emission zone and so forth. None of these things talk to each other, and maybe AI is actually going to be an opportunity for some of the mass consolidation that's clearly needed.
Yeah, yes. I mean, there are. Let's hope that it does actually solve problems rather than just take people's jobs. Darian, what's your view?
Very sceptical, I'm afraid. I mean, I do understand that we do stand on the precipice of a new era in computing, a new modality, an entirely new way of interacting with computers in terms of programming, at the very least. But I mean, if we look at the output from AI, I mean, even the thing it's best at, generating plausible looking text, there are millions upon billions of examples of it getting things heinously wrong, sometimes in subtle ways that you wouldn't recognize unless you're a subject matter expert. Move on to video or text to image generation, and it's still quite recognizable that an AI doesn't know what the hell it's doing. It can just produce something that looks superficially plausible. So I'm very concerned about this idea that we're going to entrust AI more and more with code generation, because anybody who has written a program themselves will tell you it's extremely difficult to spot the subtle bugs and the little ways in which the program may seem to do exactly what you want the first 99 times you run it in the right place, in the right in the right way with the right parameters, but it could be an absolute it could just have enormous memory holes. It could have crazy behaviors which don't immediately become apparent. It could have grave security problems, and it seems that their managers, understandably all across the industry, are saying, hang on, why are we paying very expensive, very experienced coders very large amounts of money to produce what superficially, to me, as far as I can tell, does look like just the same stuff that I can get by typing into ChatGPT, build me a secure backend or whatever. But I think this is there's a phrase, technical debt, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, and this I think is it's threatening to be the biggest overdraft we've ever drawn.
Nice. Barry, your take, your response, sir.
Well, I sort of agree. I think that for all those problems that Darian just elaborated on, you can probably apply that the same to human programmers, and so I don't think this is anything that's unique to AI, and we're going to increasingly, we're living in a world where AI is going to write a lot of the dredge code, and be more responsible for bug checking as well, it seems, and companies are going to sacrifice human coders to make that happen because it's more efficient, and even if there are more errors, I imagine the profitability will outweigh that in the long run for the likes of Amazon.
The other point that came up, because we've actually just written a feature about this. Well, Barry has just written a feature about this, which is in, God Almighty, which issue is it in, Barry? Is it in the new one?
I don't even know what the new one is. But,
okay, yeah. I believe it is in the new one, which is issue 370, which is coming, well, actually with subscribers this weekend, and it'll go out on sale next week. But one of the comments that you made in that, or one of your interviewees made, is that the commenting within the code is so much better than it is with humans. So if you do want to see if you do want to dig into something, it's actually much easier to debug, if you want to use that word, than it has been with human programmers historically.
Yeah, I mean, commenting code is a hideous job that most humans are terrible at, and the AI does a very good job of pretty much on every instruction of writing out what it's done. So even if there is a mistake in there, you can sometimes go back and work out, well, this is the part of code that's relevant to that. I'm going to stress I'm not by any means an advanced programmer, but certainly at the sort of keen amateur level that I'm at, that I find that very helpful to be able to go back, to understand what the code actually does in the first place sometimes, and B, to know where to fix the problem.
Yeah, I would be very interested in using AI to comment existing code and to add kind of easy explanations. I also wonder, I haven't heard anybody talking about using AI to debug, to trace, if you see that your code is doing something it shouldn't. I like the idea of asking an AI what could be causing this. That seems to me like a sensible, responsible use of the technology, which is probably why, as I say, I haven't heard anyone talking about it.
And there's also a point here, of course, which is what do we mean by AI coding? At the high end, you've got things like AI generating code inside very well-defined frameworks, like Wolfram language inside Mathematica. They have an AI code generator where you can say, build me something like this, and it builds it inside the Wolfram language framework. It's an entirely different kettle of fish to say, write me a printer driver for a LaserJet and make it a kernel driver and please do it in C. Those are two completely different levels here. And as always, the AI term is being kind of bandied around as a universal term when it is very much not that.
I know what you mean, John, but there is a universal application of it in terms of this is your co-pilot. I mean, it's an awful word because Microsoft used it, but it is your helper. And in fact, the word co-pilot came first in GitHub. The GitHub co-pilot. That's where we first saw that, because it does make sense. It is there as a helper. It can't do everything itself. But in the same way that you could draw upon a family of subroutines before, you can now actually just say, give me a hand on this particular problem, or give me a skeleton, give me a kind of a structure to follow. Obviously, again, my caveat here is I'm not a programmer either, and I wouldn't even call myself an advanced. What do you call yourself, Barry? Enthusiastic.
I call myself
amateur.
an advanced anything, just a clean amateur, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't even rank that highly. I don't even think I get to amateur. But that's the point I'd make. Just as a wider thing, were we right to put this feature into the magazine to help people, to encourage people to use AI to create code, or was that immoral?
I haven't seen it yet because the mag hasn't come out yet. Can you? Is it saying here is how to fire all your coders and get ChatGPT to do it for you, or is it how you yourself can leverage AI routines to work smarter, as it were?
It's the latter.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good then,
Well,
isn't
that's
it? I mean,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah,
As long
I
as
mean, all knowledge is good, I'm afraid to say, at the end of the day. And if we are not telling our readers about this stuff, they will either find it from somewhere else, or they won't become aware of it, and then might go out of business because their competitors were taking advantage of it. Doesn't mean to say that predictions are always right or have the same have the correct outcome, but absolutely we should be talking about this.
I think the key for me is that when I've used it in the past, and I've done several little apps written with AI now, is that you can write a program that does actually what you want it to do, not have to go off the shelf and get something that vaguely does what you want to do if you can find it at all. And they may be really crap little programs. Most of the stuff I've written or used AI to write is of use only to me, but that's the purpose of it. It's write short little applets that do functions that are personal to me, and that took 5 minutes for an AI to knock out.
I will just put an opposing point through here, because David on Discord, this is David Artis, says, I would say to let your competitors use AI for their code. They won't remain competitors in the longer term, which is my suspicion is that that's not true. But all my suspicion is also that David knows much more about this than I do. But I just don't think you can say that. I think it is just part of the fabric of doing business from now on. But what I'm interested in, I'm aware we've been talking about this for a while. It's just like different take on this. But look at the kickback against Duolingo that we've had. Is everyone aware of this? You must be. John, if you've been watching this, go on.
No, I'm sorry. Please enlighten me.
So the CEO of Duolingo said on Twitter or some other social medium, he said that basically they're using now replacing their coders with AI to do more stuff faster and better. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he made that announcement, and there's been a huge backlash, certainly on the Twitter sphere about it. Not necessarily, and I haven't seen any kind of impact on Duolingo numbers of people signing up for it, but there does seem to be now something of a backlash against AI for coding for these sort of things when it is replacing humans. Do we think that is going to be a thing now, Darian? Is that just part of our working society?
I mean, it's inevitably going to be a thing because businesses are ultimately money-making machines. They're not charities, and although some treat their employees much better than others, and maybe they reap commercial rewards or they reap rewards in terms of loyalty or customer and employee satisfaction. At the end of the day, something as revolutionary as this, it would be naive to think that businesses would just refrain philanthropically from taking advantage of it. But I think there is a backlash against the idea of just trying to find every opportunity to cut every corner and save every penny using AI to do anything it can conceivably do. Because as I said, AI can do an awful lot of things, but it doesn't do any of them perfectly. And some of them it does quite badly. And I think in a way, not only is it a little bit offensive to sort of say, we're going to become a mostly robot company, so to hell with our employees. But it's a bit offensive to humans in general, and certainly to people working in these jobs, to imply that something as imperfect as an LLM can do what they're doing.
But we have to consider here that bad customer service to a call center is bad customer service, and it doesn't actually really matter whether it's a human being doing the bad service or a badly written ChatGPT type of object. And good customer service is good customer service. What we might, however, see is reasonably good customer service with humans who are enthusiastic, who enjoy their work and are personable and don't sound completely fake and know something about the subject, being replaced by badly implemented LLMs simply because it's cheap. And we will, as society, we need to be calling that out.
Well, one thing I think it's not even society, John. I think it is simply you almost have to let the money do your work for you, because if people stop using your service because you've made that choice, then that's actually what's going to affect people, rather than an outcry on Twitter or similar, or even, dare I say, the PC Pro podcast, people objecting to it. But we've just seen an example of this. Perhaps I'm just looking at a link that Steve Loki put into the podcast chat, saying Klarna's AI replaced 700 workers. It's trying to bring them back. So that's this is what I mean about this kind of slight backlash. Parry, before we move on, do you have any view?
No, I think of all of these things, it's going to be finding the balance, and companies are still in that phase. This is still very new for absolutely everybody, and so yes, you're going to find companies who swung the needle too far one way and are now backtracking, and others who are like David, maybe, who refuse to touch it. And I think we'll end up with some happy medium in the end, where there's human coding, AI coding hybrids across most firms.
Okay, before just to end this topic, I just want to give David the last word. He wrote, the point I'm trying to make is that I've tried AI for writing code and seen the results of others doing so. It's regularly low quality and often has security and accessibility issues, where it concentrates on simply delivering what you asked it to do. If your competitor is accepting low quality code, well, that's not going to be great. Thank you, David. All right, talking of backlashes, poor old Nick Clegg, I believe, needs a cuddle. What do you think, Darian?
Well, maybe he does, but that might sound like it's come a bit out of nowhere. So let me give you some background.
No, I think we should just straight move on. That's fine.
As you may know, the Data Use and Access Bill has been working its way through Parliament, which covers, among other things, the use of copyrighted works to train AI engines. And there was an amendment tabled earlier this month that would have required technology companies to disclose a complete list of all copyrighted works that were being used to train their engines. This was supported by some luminaries, including Paul McCartney, Dua Lipa, Elton John, and Andrew Lloyd Webber. He read effortlessly from his screen. But that amendment was defeated in the Commons. Technology Secretary Peter Kyle has said that we're going to try to find a workable way forward for both industries, those being the creative industries and the AI industries. There's a real sense that if we do everything strictly by the book, we will be, or we as a society, we as a nation, will be left behind in terms of reaping the potential rewards of AI. Now, something I've learned recently is that when somebody's got a new book coming out, they tend to talk about it quite a lot. And Nick Clegg has How to Save the Internet, his next work coming out in a month or so, actually September, I think, so a couple of months' time. And he's been having public events where he talks about the themes in it, which are about reforming big tech with the view, obviously, of a Meta insider, but while getting the best value, best gain from the technologies and questionable practices that some large technology companies have developed and adopted. This kind of all came up, this is blown up a little bit of a storm because of one particular quote. So Nick Clegg says that he thinks people should have the right to opt out of having their works used to train AI models, but he thinks it's unrealistic to have that the default. What he said was, a lot of people say you can only train on my content if you get permission first. That strikes me as somewhat implausible because these systems train on vast amounts of data. Now that's a contentious position, but I think that kind of does really sum up the dilemma, as it were, that's facing all sorts of regulatory jurisdictions. But the thing that really annoyed me was he then said, and by the way, if you did that in Britain and no one else did it, you'd basically kill the AI industry in this country overnight. Which I think is pretty unambiguous. I think that's unarguable that if Britain had much, much higher standards for including copyrighted content in AI than America did, America's models would just massively grow faster and become more powerful and more useful. Because we have to admit, having all those works in there to draw upon and refer to does make the AI more valuable to us, although it may be less, maybe less desirable to those people who might be losing some of their livelihood in having their works used in that way. Anyway, the point was, The Verge, which I normally consider quite a reasonable, quite respectable news source, not normally one I associate with sensationalism, headlined this. Nick Clegg says, asking artists for use permission would kill the AI industry. Now, that's not what he said, and I think it doesn't really help us reach a conclusion to kind of jump to the most alarmist interpretation.
Okay, well, before I go on to ask Barry and John for their thoughts, I will just say you just made me think, if all they could do was train it on out of copyright material, which basically means 70 years after people's death, then we'd have all these Middle Ages kind of tech that they're using it on. And
yes, I love it. Yeah, brilliant.
Ford would be saying to us, what doth you want?
It would, well, no, 70 years. I feel like maybe you don't have a grasp on how long 70 years is. Because, I mean, we could have things from the 1940s, for example, where we could have Claude Esquire giving us very polite, gentlemanly advice and commentary.
Do you know what? I think I prefer that world.
But also, sorry, to be boring, if I may, also, of course, that could include anything where, controversially, Reddit made part of its terms and conditions that it could sell your stuff that you had posted there as for use in AIs. Facebook could very easily, if they haven't already, introduced a similar sort of thing. So there could be situations where the copyright situation is not as black and white as we're picturing.
And just to quickly answer a question on Discord as to whether This is from David again, saying, "I wonder Tim was happy to have his new book scraped for AI purposes." As it happens, that's okay, because this is my contract is with Raspberry Pi Press,
Very principled.
and they are an educational charity, and they put everything out into the open. So it's all effectively open source. So it is actually going to be available for scraping, but including all the typos and the mistakes, of which there are probably a couple. Barry, what's your take on this subject?
I think he's right in the sense that it is wildly impractical for any AI company to go and seek permission for everybody's data it's trying to use. In much the same way, it's wildly impractical for Spotify to approach every artist to see if they can add their song to the library. Or the PRS, for example. If we want to play a song in the local football stadium, I'm not going to have to write to Elton John to get his permission first. It's obviously impractical. So what is needed is something like the PRS, where money is returned to that industry and then it's distributed amongst people fairly based on their contribution. So if we, for example, as journalists benefit and authors benefit from the ALCS, the Authors Collecting Society, and for when books get taken out in libraries and photocopied and there's a revenue gain from that, then the money is split between authors. That, to me, seems what should be done in the AI industry, that if your works are being sucked up into these AIs to train AIs, then you should get something back, and that's levied upon the AI firms. And that, that's pretty standard across the entertainment industry already. We've seen it in publishing. I don't see why the same can't apply to AI.
And to go back again in history, that didn't happen instantly. If you began in the 1920s or earlier, there was an outrage against people knocking off the songs. I forget what they're called, but basically a copy of the songs that other people could play on the piano, songbooks, and that's how the copyright laws came into being. And we do need some. I think you're absolutely right, Barry. We do need something similar. And basically, this is a time to think about the copyright laws, because we aren't producing songbooks anymore. Things have changed. So the way we think about copyright has to change in the same way. John, your thoughts?
Where does one start? The reality here is, no, this is not like playing a song and having to pay for it at your football stadium, and because there's a very well established way of doing that and paying for it through PRS and other agencies like that. The big difference here, of course, is that when you play your song as the people come marching out onto the grass, it's an ephemeral thing. It's done and it's gone. What we're actually talking here about is scraping something, indexing its contents, and basically pulling it to pieces and using it in perpetuity moving forward. That's an incredibly different thing to playing a song at a football stadium. What Nick Clegg is asking for essentially is forgiveness after the fact, after his previous employer in the shape of Facebook has been and the other relatively small handful of large American corporations have been going out there trundling across the internet and taking a copy of everything and indexing it and then building engines upon it, and now getting a little bit upset when people turn around and said, oh, you shouldn't do that. And was it not the case a few weeks ago that I can't remember which engine it was, where they had to admit that they'd taken an entire book library which they admitted in writing internally what they knew was stolen material. The whole thing is somewhat laughable for regulators to want to come around now and try and build up some sort of model of paying for this. It's 20 years too late, sorry, and everyone has been caught with their trousers down over this in an entirely predictable way, because we never really expected that it would get to the point that someone could take the amount of data that had been trawled for search engines and then actually go off and build an AI engine on top of that. That was a step way beyond of where we were thinking.
But John, it can't be 20. But what do you mean it's way too late? You've got to do something. Just because something has happened, it doesn't mean you can't do anything about it.
I don't buy the argument that. I mean, if you're talking about training AI engine, again, this is the point where we're conflating multiple things called AI. If you're talking about training the data inside your hospital or inside part of the NHS to look at mammograms to look for breast cancer, that's an entirely highly focused use, and people have signed up to that as part of the process. That's
Yes.
an entirely different thing to going basically taking a copy of the public internet and
Absolutely.
trundling
But
across it.
isn't that just a completely different discussion as well? Because
Yeah,
we're
it-
talking about
yeah,
copyright,
but
and you're
what
talking about machine learning for diagnosis.
No, but the problem is this is the AI term that's being bandied around here, and he was talking about if they don't allow this to happen in the public space, then AI potentially in the private space, the hospital space, etc., that will be doomed in the UK, and I think
Yeah.
that's just sort of offensively naive.
Okay, so your argument, if you like, is with Nick Clegg basically oversimplifying it.
Oh, completely! It's
No,
laughable.
I think that's a bit of an oversimplification of his argument, to be honest. Because he's not saying that your cancer diagnosis is going to stop if you charge OpenAI to get these art to get these works. It's saying that the AI industry as we know it, the LLMs that most of us deal with on a day-to-day basis, cannot operate on the basis that they have to go and negotiate with every person. In the same way Spotify can't operate if they have to go and negotiate with every artist, or libraries can't operate if they have to go and negotiate with every author. There are clear parallels there between what's already happened. And as Tim said, the systems for libraries and PRS was put in well after public music was broadcast, but PRS was in the 60s from memory. So, it does take time for revenue models to catch up with technology. It always has done, it always will do.
But the point here that we can't escape is that the models have been trained on this data. If you now suddenly, if there was some magical legal wand that could be waved to say, I object to my stuff on the internet being used to train models, how are we going to get it extracted out of those models that already exist?
You're not in the same way that half the people on Spotify, the artists on Spotify, complain that their songs are on Spotify because they signed up with a record label in the 90s that signed off their rights. It's imperfect, it's not great, but that is industry, that is life. It happens. You don't always get to predict what's going to happen 10 years in the future when you sign a deal or put something on the internet. That's life, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think that is I think we do have to accept imperfection. Even some would say that this podcast is imperfect and runs over time. So what we shall do is we shall just delay this for another argument some later date. Because I fear, I'm just going to make a prediction here. I think we'll be talking about this topic again in some form in the future. All right, let us move to the next item, which is about the robot industry. This is quite interesting, and again, this is I'm afraid this does relate to AI. The market for humanoid robots, or certainly mobile robots. So these are robots you can imagine working in different places. So you see, they could be. We've already seen some of it happen. So, for example, they could be working in a factory floor. They could be working as a customer service robot at the front of a hotel, checking you in. They could be bringing you a cup of serving you your drink in a high-end bar in the future. These are what we're thinking of when we think of these humanoid robots. It's a fascinating industry, it's a growth one, and it's been massively changed, or is being changed by the fact they can build in LLMs that can actually turn these into really semi-realistic beings that can respond to you and talk to you. So, okay, that is the background. So, there is some hysteria. Well, no, that's me overblowing it. But there is a talk here that basically we are making a mistake to create humanoid robots. And that some believe, and in fact, some of the ones that are already out there, that they don't look completely human. So, for example, if you look at, you can look at Spot the dog. The Boston Dynamics. I'm getting my names wrong here, but anyway, the very famous robot dog that goes around factories. That's not trying to be a human, but that is, in a way, apart from the fact it doesn't have two legs and walk around, that is a robot in the sense we're talking about in terms of fulfilling a role in industry. So there's that way of thinking. But then Boston Dynamics also creates a very humanoid robot that's scary. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you? Stop me talking. Have anyone seen the human robot Atlas by Boston Dynamics?
No.
Let me just have a quick look, and I'll post a link into a Discord as well, so that them lot don't have to.
Okay. Well, this thing can do amazing tricks. It can jump, it can flip, it can get up from the ground. So it can lie prone and jump up. And so that's one robot there, and then there are other robots with different skills. There's another everyone's probably aware of the Tesla robot whose name I briefly forget, Optimus something or other. Anyway, that just looks slick. It looks futuristic, and it moves extremely well. There are other ones that have got very dexterous hands. There are other ones that can, that you can imagine that they can actually look at you, can hold a conversation. They got a human-like face in terms of what it can do. So it can smile at you, it can laugh at your jokes. Obviously, not one of mine. So these things are coming along and coming down the line. And I think I've talked myself away from the main thrust of this argument. Do we think, let's turn to Barry, do we think that humanoid robots are a mistake and we should just actually have robots looking like robots?
Well, it depends on what purpose they're being used for. So, I mean, I've seen, in fact, I saw in Las Vegas some truly awful human-like robots that were being used for applications such as care homes and as assistants for people. And I guess in that sense, it sort of makes sense if it's replacing a human in the sense. For the vast majority of purposes, no, I don't really see the purpose of. Surely you're better to design a form factor that makes the most sense for the function of the robot rather than trying to make it look like a human full stop. But then I think that's been I can't think of any examples where a robot has been specifically designed as a humanoid where it doesn't need to be. I mean, this isn't a new argument, but car factories and whatever aren't full of human-like robots. They're full of robots that manufacture cars that just look like machinery. So I'm not quite sure who's getting so upset about this. I've got no moral objection to a robot looking like a human as long as it's performing some kind of human-like task and it's a reasonably practical design for it.
What about a robot? Who looks after you, Barry? In 10 years' time, when your body's decayed, when your knees finally given up, what kind of robot do you want to be helping you get into bed, etc.?
Random question. I don't.
No. This is where they see robots. These robots making an impact is actually as that final source of assistance to people who now struggle to look after themselves because the care industry. People don't really want to work in it, but there's a massively growing need for it. So it's not completely random.
But it's as I said before, it's just.
I'll give you more than 10 years.
The form factor that works best for that particular application. If it needs something to physically lift me into bed, I suspect a human-like design is not the most practical way forward.
If I may say, I mean, I fully agree about, it's a false dichotomy. Of course, we can have robots that are humanoid and robots that aren't humanoid. One doesn't have to be inherently better than the other. But the argument that I've seen is that partly human shape is actually a very, very stable and versatile shape. There's a kind of a reason why it's evolved in the way it has. So if you're making a relatively general purpose robot that isn't just, an assembly line, humanoid is not a bad way to go. And the other thing is because we are humanoids, our entire world is adapted for humanoid shapes. If you want a robot that's going to be able to open a door, turn on a light switch, get something down from a shelf, walk upstairs, humanoid is perfect. All that work has already been done, Well, it's by copying the shape and actions and kind of muscular muscular movements and joints of a human, you don't need to think at all about adapting for whatever real world environment you might bump into. So I do see that. I do think, however, that all of the things we've seen so far are so creepy, those videos that have been posted on Discord of Atlas and Optimus and what have you, that I think there's some distance left to go before I'd be happy to have a humanoid robot in my household.
Jeff Campbell disagrees with you quite violently. He says, what?
Does he?
Yep, he says, bipedal is really dumb. And he's even gone to the bother of italicising the really. So that's how strongly he feels on that point. John?
Humanoid bipedal robots will work very well for the time being in environments where they are basically doing a human replacement task, or whatever that may be. The point is, should you be doing a human replacement task? Or what I mean by that is, should you be redefining the task? So I can see things like warehousing jobs, production, manufacturing areas like that, where robots are not going to be bipedal and slowly walking around holding something heavy in front of them. We've had, 30 years of robotics inside factories, and it's an incredibly highly developed platform for doing that. So what we are talking here really, I think, is about human replacement into human oriented environments, as the others have said. And for that point of view, I think for the moment that will be probably the best way of doing it. The other point to raise here, of course, is that there is an expectation here with the robot replacing human thing, is that you're talking about a generalized item that will do a very wide range of tasks. This is very different to the like of your Roomba as a robotic hoover that only does one thing, or the robot in your garden that mows the lawn, or that kind of robotic. We're talking about specifically very generalized tasks.
No, we are. And I'll just end on this, because I think people probably think this isn't going to happen. They probably put this in the same category as, flying cars and all this kind of thing. This has come back to me in 10 years. 15 years time, I genuinely think these will be much more commonplace in terms of 1 in 10 houses having something like this in them. So I think that's
I agree. I think that's entirely likely to happen.
So this is going to be something that we need to think about. So it's worth having this kind of random discussion even now. All right. Talking of random discussions, John, do you want to talk briefly about what the CIA has been up to?
Well, yes. Let me just post a little link here into our lovely Discord chat. For those of viewers listening at home, it's starwarsweb.net. If you go and click on that, you find yourself landing on the wonderful webpage of the CIA, saying we are the nation's first line of defense. So you might ask yourself, why is a website called starwarsweb.net pointing at the CIA homepage? And the answer is, it's a very interesting article out there, which is that it would appear that some years ago, the late noughties into early 2010s or so, the CIA was actually using websites that looked like, in this particular case, Star Wars. There were hundreds of them, and they were in not just English, they were in all sorts of localized languages around the world. And it would appear that the reason for doing this was that it gave a nice sort of benign portal by which they could have encrypted communications from agents in the field to talk back to the mothership. But connecting through, I mean, obviously you would not want your agent to connect to, me.spy.gov.com or whatever it is. That would have been a bit of a giveaway. So having these sort of...
How great to hide it in plain sight, though.
Well, exactly. Although there's actually some extremely good analysis that was being done over the years. One guy called Ciro Santilli has got a great video on this. I'll post the link on YouTube. And some of the analysis was actually looking at DNS servers and IP addresses and so forth. And they found that the CIA had managed to have individual physical IP addresses and machines for individual sites for these things, and they were all clustered together in very close IP address ranges. So if you found the IP address of one of these sites, you could sort of walk up and down a little bit and find a whole bunch of others. I will admit that this was, 15 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago, and maybe we were not quite as cynical as we might be today in the way that we would implement this. But it is certainly a little fascinating peek into the history of the internet and how sometimes what you see might not actually be what you think it is. And a good reminder that there may well be all sorts of back doors dropped into extremely well-known commercial websites used every day for these purposes. And who would know?
Do we know how exactly the communication was done? Because when I first heard about this, I was very hopeful that they were posting kind of fan theories about, Revenge of the Sith or something, which were actually, subtle allusions to what was going to happen in Iran or something. But it might be that it was as straightforward as the site had a private message function. I can't actually find this out. I think it might be a bit more prosaic than I was hoping.
I think it was probably click on the right buttons and wave your trouser leg, and then a sort of a chat window would appear or something along those embedded into the site. But I mean, of course, hiding stuff in plain sight is often the good way of doing it. And we've always, Jeff and me and other friends have always talked about, wouldn't it be fun to set up an encryption service for videos which you dropped onto YouTube and use steganography to encrypt the data into the noise floor of the video. And of course the videos would have to be cat videos, and then everyone could watch them. You might even end up with millions of viewers, but you're actually sending highly confidential information around in plain sight.
There was, I'm not sure if it was the CIA, but certainly one of the security agencies, it was revealed once that they when they couldn't establish a secure communications, they were using game chat in something like Fortnite to communicate, because again it's so, well, not obscure but hidden from view that they didn't think it would likely be intercepted.
There is a slightly dark side to this, because there is a suggestion in here that bad actors out there, governmental bad actors.
What, in Star Wars?
No. Out there in the UK planet, discovered what was going on here, and it really did compromise a lot of assets around the world. So there's always a danger in any method that you use, and that's why it would appear all of these have been shut down. So it says on here on the this site, the discovery of these websites by Iranian and Chinese counterintelligence led to the imprisonment and execution of several assets in these countries, and subsequent shutdown of the channel by the CIA when they noticed things had gone wrong. So I mean, this, although we can have a good old chuckle about using Star Wars as a front end, there was a truly deadly side to this.
Well, yes, as there is to all warfare, as there is to all spy work. So let us rapidly run through the nibs, because we appear to have 5. I apologise for the growth of nibs. Darian, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, mine's going to be quick because I forgot to read up on it, but I can tell you what I'm pretty sure it is. It's that the new Panasonic Let's Note laptop, which has traditionally been an absolute workhorse of industry, has for the first time in its long, 40-year existence, has dropped the VGA port. And that really is like, I imagine it's probably 10 years plus since any of us bought a new laptop that had a VGA port anyway. But when you go into offices, etc., they still sometimes have projectors or smartboards or whatever that use that classic analog, 15-pin connector. The fact that it's not even on the laptop, which is the industry standard for such stuff, tells us that we've now truly embraced the age of digital video.
Thank you. Barry.
Yeah, so this is Anthropic's Claude AI, which is introducing a new voice assistant. An interesting thing about this is it lets you interact directly with files stored in your Google account. So they put a demo of this out on X earlier this week, and it shows a demo asking things like, "Hey Claude, when's my first meeting?" And it reels back someone's calendar, or they say, "Did I get an email from so and so last night?" And it reads through their inbox and then reads a summary of the email back to them. So a voice assistant that can actually dig into your Google third-party services, which I believe is the first time any of the mainstream offerings are able to do this.
Thank you. Let's intersperse this. John, what's going on with Windows Update?
Yes, massively overdue, and if they do bring this to market and it and it takes off, it will be a damn good thing. Microsoft is going to open up Windows Update, it appears, so that third-party applications can update themselves through the Windows Update mechanism. As it stands at the moment, of course, if you have an app in Microsoft Store, you can update through that mechanism. But Windows Update has very slowly been opening up to updating third-party drivers and firmware for laptops and so forth. But opening it up, Windows Update, to do third-party apps, I think is going to be a very significant step, and we could probably quite rightly say, and why not 10, 15 years ago?
Okay, thank you. Barry, the FTC.
FTC has decided to drop its case against Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. This has been rumbling on for a couple of years, and there was various appeals and whatever, but it seems the FTC's finally waved the white flag, so the near $70 billion that Microsoft paid for Activision Blizzard is going to be waved through.
Okay, thank you. John.
Yes, just on the rumour mill coming out through Bloomberg is that it's expected that Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, which is it next week after? It's usually early June. They're going to announce that all OS versions for all platforms of Apple is going to be renamed to version 26, and they're going to basically engage with the year as a number rather than the current mix of numbering that we've got, so that you'll know that you're on the current one. So this, of course, will be iPad, Mac OS, Watch OS, TV, Vision OS, and so forth. You might, of course, want to grumble and say why 26 when it will be announced in 25, but hey, that's marketing.
Okay, and this is our final item of a packed episode. I'm sorry, Retro Al, we did not indeed cover Microsoft Build. Nothing for some reason, maybe it should have done, but nothing really leapt out. Okay, but Barry, what is that on your lapel?
Well, it was on my lapel when we started this show, but I had to move it. This is a wireless lavalier microphone kit that I obtained earlier this week from Amazon. So here's the scenario. I run, or I'm the chair of a supporters club where we do a meeting every month. And what we normally do is I have my laptop in the room, and we have people in the room and people joining virtually on a video. And I connect my wired microphone, and people have to keep passing this microphone around and have to keep sitting next to me to talk into the microphone. A lot of faff. People don't like it. A lot of background noise. We wanted to try a wireless mic solution to make life a little easier. Obviously, you could go online and buy one of the Rode kits that are great, and we've all used on various shows, I'm sure. But you're looking at £200-300, and that's a little bit beyond the extreme budget of the Lewis FC Supporters Club. So I decided to see what a £20 kit from Amazon could do for us. So this is and the brand is called IU Make VP, which was bought almost entirely at random with the rather unscientific method of picking the Amazon product that seemed to have the highest score and the most genuine reviews. So it's a little kit where you get two lavalier mics to stick on with the relevant clips on the back. You get a little dongle that you attach into your USB socket, and that can plug into a phone, a laptop, tablet, anything with a USB socket. And it's just plug and play, really. Obviously, these little wireless mics have batteries in them. They provide a USB cable charger that has both USB-A and USB-C connections on it.
Barry is now showing to viewers what a USB to USB-C to USB-A charge cable looks like.
Hang on, do me a favour. Look, last week, Lee got a 94% for something that reads USB cables. I show a USB cable and I get humped for it. Anyway, and it all comes with a little travel kit with spare clips, spare microphone heads, a little adapter for if you have a lightning port still on your iPhone, so you can plug it into that, and a pair of headphones that you wouldn't let your dog chew. But anyway, so we tried this out last night. It all seemed to work perfectly fine. I sat with one, we passed one around for the rest of the room, and suddenly the meeting with all the sound problems that we normally get complained about was perfectly fine. Obviously, this is a £20 kit. This is not the high optimal standard for broadcast audio. I didn't have any complaints last night when I tried to put it on for this show earlier. The guy said it was too quiet and we couldn't quite work out in the sound settings. The complaints I got last night was it was a little bit too loud at times. So I'm a bit mystified as to what's going on, if there's something going on with Riverside that adapts the volume. Anyway, I don't know. We need to look into it further. But this is obviously not going to be the last word in sound quality.
We're clearly not going to look into this further.
Well, I will, because I quite like to use these for video broadcasting. But and so I have no idea on battery. Like last night's meeting needed 2 hours, didn't run out of battery, but there's no battery indicator on these, just literally a light that comes on to say it's on, and it goes red when it's charging. But I've no idea what the length of battery life is. They don't state that on their site. I suspect for a cheap, and if you've got fairly limited applications for it like I have, it will be fine. I don't suggest you buy these if you're about to audition for the BBC.
John.
Well, it's cheap, and it has a cable adapter.
Yes,
so I'm
I
sold
noticed
on
that.
it. I'm blown sideways. I'm sorry. I've just got to have one of these. I'm going to be clicking on the link right now.
That alone, you'd pay a $5 on Amazon.
Yeah. Again, for people who are listening to this, Barry just held up the cable. That's what a cable looks like. Darian, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we tried briefly using this earlier on, and I've got to say the sound quality sounded appalling to me. But I don't know if that was to do with something specific about the environment, or so you say you used this in earnest last night, and the only comment was that it was loud. No one said it sounded like you were talking from the other side of a cardboard box or anything.
No, there was no complaints about the sound quality. The only time there was a complaint was when somebody had it on the desk in front of them, not holding it up in front of them. So you obviously have to be fairly close. But that's Lavalier mics.
I mean, I'm always very dubious of this sort of microphone because it's kind of pointing. The very best case scenario is that it's pointing past your mouth from a distance of some probably quite a few inches. And I have, I've done a little bit of TV work, and they, good ones can be surprisingly good, but bad ones are just shocking. And based on the little bit that we heard earlier, I haven't yet been persuaded that this is more former than latter. So that's not really a question. It's just like that's my outstanding concern, which I guess you can't really alleviate for me.
To be fair, like Roche turns up here every week with another £600 microphone that we can't get to work on Riverside. So
that's true.
Let's just not be too hasty and judge it on a 10-minute test.
One thing I do like about this is it uses absolute no-nonsense 2.4 gigahertz radio, and although that might be a pain if you've got lots of 2.4 gigahertz stuff around in the same room, generally speaking, you're not going to get weird technical problems. It's just, it just talks and the receiver listens.
Yes, just to say that David has looked, Mrs. David Artis has looked on the website. Apparently it quotes 8 hours battery life.
Oh, really? Okay.
So whether it actually gets to that is a different matter.
I can confirm it lasts for 2.
Okay. John, how much would you pay typically for a Lavalier headphone microphone like this?
Oh, I'm not sure. A Rode Lav mic is how much?
About
60 quid?
No, they're more than that. For a set of 2, it was at near 250. I was looking at it because that was my first instinct was to
hold on a second, Gov. This is an entirely different animal, which has got its own onboard recording, 32-bit float, and all the rest of it.
I know. I'm not comparing them. I'm not saying it's equal. I'm just saying that's the price.
To answer your question, dear editor Tim, is about 230 quid.
Okay, so yeah, so let's view it.
I mean, our learned Barry is entirely right. There is a price-performance requirement here and a functionality requirement here, and if you need the capabilities, you pay for them. If you want just a Bogo standard little radio mic thing for 23 quid, you're not too bothered when the dog swallows it. I mean, the vet bill is going to be more.
Oh, well, it definitely will be. All right, let's throw up the vote, shall we? And let people decide. Darian, hot.
Who's doing the vote? Darian, are you on that or am I on that?
I'm answering Tim's question, so if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's tough. We've got to multitask. Sorry, Barry. Darian, hot or not?
Yeah, I actually, I've never really thought about the idea of a wireless lavalier mic before. I'm not sure why, because it seems like a really useful thing to have, and now I've been now the idea has been introduced to my life, I want one. But with microphones, with any kind of audio equipment, you really need to hear it yourself, because there is such an enormous variety of quality and character, and the price set my expectations low, and what I've heard with my own ears, I'm sorry, listeners, that you didn't get to experience this that slightly squeaky little bit of dialogue earlier, made me anxious. It kind of makes me think that no matter what you do, even in the best case, you're not going to get something as nice as what I'm getting from this. I think it was a £10 Turtle Beach gaming headset that I'm currently using for this podcast. So I think I'm kind of I'm with John insofar as the spectrum of available microphones in terms of price and quality goes miles and miles up from this, and I would probably want to aim somewhere a bit higher than the 23 quid one. It having not blown us all away with its quality. Sorry, so I guess that means I'm not hot.
I think it does. John?
Well, the new Rode Wireless Micro, which is a 2 microphone kit thing, it's 139 quid. Inc. VAT. Now that's what 7 or 8 times the cost of this little kit. It's quite likely 7 or 8 times the quality, and certainly I'm sure it's a lot more than 7 times the support and firmware updates and all that kind of stuff. But it's a different creature, so I'm going to say it's hot, if only for the cable adapter.
Can I just add something to my comment, by the way? Sorry, I've been very harsh on this, and I've realised that actually, although the quality is questionable, it's actually absolutely ideal if what you want to do is record a meeting or a presentation or something. And the fact that it's so small and wireless and has decent battery life, actually, I can see a use for it, and I think I would feel ridiculous taking a Rode Wireless Micro kit to to a lecture or something just to record that. So although I'm still cold, I just want to give what's the company called? Was it I make a UVP?
Yeah.
I don't want to get any angry emails from them over my unfair judgment.
All right. I'm going to go not as well, but Barry, I think there's a popular vote happening here to see the bag and the USB cable again. So can you just I think people want to see everything that comes in the box. So there's the bag.
Bag.
Barry is opening the bag.
There is a USB-A to USB-C converter.
Ooh. That's worth 22 quid alone.
Yeah, there's the Lightning to USB-C converter. There are spare clips and spare, what do you call those, windshield things on the mics. 2 mics. The dongle that goes into your phone or laptop. And of course, the cable. With
The star.
USB-A and USB-C connections.
Wow. Both connections.
Both. 2 for the price of 1.
Okay, all right. So bearing in mind all that, which way is your vote going to go?
It's indescribably hot, Tim. For £22, I'd have bought it for that one meeting alone. So if it gets me through another meeting, I'm quite happy.
All right, thank you. You're also, actually, you know what? You're not totally alone, because looking at it, it's pretty much 63%. No, it's climbing. I think because Barry just voted. It's now.
That is illegal. We're not allowed to vote on that.
Really? Okay.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
That's
you did.
complicated.
You voted hot though, so that's okay, John. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, 60%
Such integrity, yes.
roughly hot. 60% not and 40% hot. So Barry, I'm afraid this one in the official voting is going to go in as a not. But thank you for your time. All right. Until the next podcast, I believe it's going to be in a week. I guess it's goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Just Ian Milk making a fantastic point here. Those adapters were £3 each. I'm just gonna go and sell the kit on eBay.
What? Yeah, you can eBay
the individual pieces.
accessories to recoup the price.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you know what? That was quite close in the end in terms of the votes, I will admit. That's closer than I thought it was going to be. Oh no, do you know what? Hot is taking it. Sorry, Barry.
Well, one of the One of the things I've noticed from the Amazon reviews is that there's a surprising number of people saying that it just didn't work at all. So I don't know if it's really if the manufacturing is a bit hit and miss, or whether sometimes with these sort of drop shipping companies, they just, okay, we've got none from that factory, let's switch to a different product that does the same thing. So you can't really tell, unfortunately.
Who'd have thought a 20 quid kit could be unreliable?
Shocking. I know.
All right,
All right.
I'm going to go and
Yeah.
lunch myself. See you later.
See you later.
Carl?
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.